There is a strange, almost mandatory cultural script we are all expected to read from the moment June arrives. We are supposed to worship the sun. The perfect summer is marketed to us as the absolute peak of human happiness, endless beaches, constant social motion, and relentless, blinding light. But if you look closely at human history, summer was rarely a vacation. For centuries, it was the season of high mortality, waterborne disease, and brutal, exhausting labor under an unforgiving sky. The modern idolization of summer is a very recent marketing illusion, one that masks a massive biological tax. And for a specific minority of the population, roughly 7% of us, this illusion doesn't just feel exhausting. It feels like an extortion racket. If you are one of the few who feels a profound, almost primal sense of relief when the temperature drops, the sky goes gray, and the world forces everyone inside, you aren't broken. You haven't failed at being a normal, socially functional person. You might just be wired for an entirely different kind of survival. To understand why, we have to look at the sheer biological cost of heat. It's 2 in the afternoon on a Tuesday in mid-July. You are sitting in a perfectly air-conditioned room, staring at a simple email you need to send. You stare at the screen, watching the cursor blink, but the words refuse to form. The glare from the window is sharp. Your jaw is inexplicably tight. You haven't done any physical labor today, but there is a heavy, ambient exhaustion sitting right behind your eyes, pressing down on your skull. You close the laptop. You aren't physically tired in that moment. You are metabolically depleted. There is a concept in thermal biology I came across recently that frames this perfectly. Research tends to suggest that the human brain operates at its absolute peak cognitive efficiency in cooler ambient temperatures, right around 65 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit. When the environment gets hot, the brain doesn't just get sleepy. It experiences what we might call metabolic hyperinflation. Every single cognitive task, focusing on a screen, regulating a minor frustration, making a basic decision, suddenly costs double the calories just to maintain thermal homeostasis. Your body is working overtime just to keep your core temperature stable, leaving almost nothing left over for creativity or patience. The heat is literally draining your executive function, which might explain the deep, invisible exhaustion that seems to drag you down from June to August. But the biological drain is only half the problem. The real friction comes from the societal expectation that you should be enjoying it. Summer carries a heavy, unspoken demand for constant, visible, extroverted output. It is the ultimate extrovert's economy. You are expected to be outside to be seen, to be endlessly available for plans and gatherings. And when you don't want to be, when the brightness feels like sandpaper on a highly sensitive nervous system, you don't just feel tired. You feel an immense amount of guilt. We have heavily medicalized the winter blues, but we rarely talk about the crushing biological stress of summer. Some psychologists refer to it as reverse SAD, or summer pattern seasonal affective disorder. But I think let me reroute here. I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's just look at the daily reality of it. The environment is aggressively loud, but you are the one forcing yourself to match its volume. Built by a culture addicted to motion, maintained by your own habit of apologizing for needing stillness. You probably spend half of July just trying to construct a socially acceptable excuse to stay in your living room with the blinds drawn. Which brings us to the core of this entire experience. Why do you actually prefer the winter? If I had to guess, based on evolutionary anthropology, it goes far deeper than just liking the aesthetic of a cozy sweater or avoiding a sunburn. What I think might be happening is that the 7% who prefer winter are the evolutionary descendants of the tribe strategists. While the vast majority of the population expended all their metabolic energy hunting, foraging, and laboring in the summer sun, every surviving tribe needed a phenotype that conserved cognitive bandwidth. They needed minds that stayed cool, observed complex patterns, and planned for the harshness of the impending winter. Your preference for the cold isn't a behavioral quirk. It is a highly evolved mechanism for deep processing. You don't crave the winter because you are antisocial, fragile, or trying to escape reality. You crave it because your brain is uniquely wired to find cognitive clarity and emotional peace only when the sensory volume of the world is finally turned down. While everyone else is burning out in the glaring heat, your neurology is quietly gathering resources. The darkness isn't a hiding place. It is a laboratory. We tend to view the shorter days of winter as a deprivation of light. Society frames the early sunsets as a tragic loss of time. But for a highly sensitive nervous system, removing the visual noise of the sun isn't a deprivation at all. It is a massive expansion of cognitive space. When the sky gets dark at 4:30 in the afternoon, the external world abruptly stops demanding your immediate attention. It naturally limits external stimulation, forcing the brain out of a reactive, survival-based mode and into abstract, deep processing states. There is a profound neurological shift that happens when you escape a harsh, cold environment into a warm, safe shelter. It triggers a primal dopamine release in the brain, a phenomenon often called the refuge appeal. The contrast of the freezing wind outside and the quiet stillness inside doesn't just feel comfortable. Well, I don't fully know how to measure this, but it makes you feel completely untouchable. Which is a slightly dramatic way to describe drinking black tea on a Tuesday night. But the neurology checks out. This changes how you have to look at the next few months. Reclaiming winter means stopping the apologies for your own biology. It means recognizing that your need to retreat, to cancel plans, and to seek the quiet of the dark is not a weakness to be fixed. It is a biological competitive advantage to be leveraged. The modern economy is obsessed with the extortion of endless summer, demanding infinite growth, constant networking, and visible harvesting. It actively pathologizes the internal, invisible processing that actually drives human progress. But nature doesn't work that way, and neither does a high-functioning mind. If you know someone who always seems to come alive just as the trees go bare, send this to them without explanation. They'll know exactly what it means. The cold isn't an excuse to shut down. The environment provides the socially acceptable cover, but you are the one who decides to weaponize the silence. You can use this strategic dormancy to outthink a society that is thoroughly addicted to constant, exhausting motion. You will probably still feel a momentary twinge of guilt the next time you decline a sunny, outdoor invitation just to sit in a quiet, cool room. The guilt is just a ghost of someone else's expectations. But it might be worth asking what kind of ideas you could build if you finally stopped fighting your own metabolic nature. The dark isn't hiding you. It's just waiting for you to outthink them.